Okay, I hope you had some cake because this talk is going to be a bit bitter. Just, I will tell you that from the beginning. Well, it's great to be here tonight for the second anniversary of Astronomy on Tap. Something? Can you hear me? Yes? No? Yes? No? Yes? Okay. That's better? Okay. So it's great to be here. It's been amazing 2 years in Astronomy on Tap. And astronomy is amazing, right? That's why we're all here tonight. We all love astronomy. We all love looking at the sky. One of the things that I really like about astronomy is that you can enjoy it if you do science, or also if you just look at the sky, anybody can enjoy astronomy. And in the last decades and centuries, astronomy has given us an understanding on the universe that the first people that looked at the sky would have never even imagined. It has been amazing what we have achieved in astronomy in the last centuries. But astronomy has a very dark side as well. And that's the side that I'm going to tell you about tonight. And that is the fact that astronomy has one of the worst diversity rates in any scientific field. And that's not just because I say so. That's actually data from the Nelson Diversity Survey. This is a survey that analyzes the top 100 universities in the United States. And this is the number of people that earned PhDs separated by race and gender. I know it's hard to see. Astronomy is here, so I will zoom in for you. So between 1996 and 2005, the amount of astronomy PhDs earned by black people were less than 3%. Less than 1%. By Hispanic people were less than 3%. By Native Americans was less than 0.5%. By Asian people, around 8%. Women around 23%, and white men around 70%. So as you can see, the diversity problem in astronomy goes well beyond just gender issues, but that is what I'm going to focus on tonight, because otherwise we could be a whole week talking about all the other issues. And some of you might be saying, okay, but this is data from the US, right? And we're in Europe now. Europe is more progressive. Things are different here. I have bad news for you, because things in Europe are also pretty terrible. So this is the map of the percent of women researchers in science in Europe in 2015. You already can see that it looks kind of bad, but this is, here I have censored the ranking and the Netherlands, because I want you to guess, where do you think the Netherlands is in this ranking? So please raise your hand if you think that the Netherlands is at the top half of this ranking. Okay, there's a few optimists here in the audience tonight. Nice. So raise your hand if you think that it's in the bottom half. Well, congratulations, pessimists. It's actually on the bottom half, and not just that, it's actually at the bottom. The Netherlands has the worst amount of women researchers in science in Europe. And now, to bring things even more to a local scale, this is a screenshot of the Leiden Observatory website. And this is the faculty staff. It was taken just a couple days ago. And if you ask how many tenured professors are at Leiden Observatory, it's just one, Evine van Dijk. If we count some visiting professors or some more assistant professors, things get a little bit better. Jackie, our previous speaker, is also there on that list. But still, out of 40 faculty members, only 6 are women. So this is 15%. And now this is not a personal attack on Leiden Observatory. I love it, I work there. This is actually how things are everywhere. This is data from the International Astronomical Union, to which most professional astronomers are part of. And they actually update their membership data every month. So this is data from March 2018, and only 18% of their members are women. So things are not just bad in the US, they're not just bad in Europe or in Leiden, they're bad everywhere for women. Now, why should we care about this? Why should we strive for more diversity in science? To begin with, it has been proven that more diverse teams show better performance and more innovation. Because if your team is made up of people that all come from a similar background, it's likely that they all will think very similarly, and it's also likely that they will be blind to many problems that do not affect them directly, but do affect another big part of society. And when this happens, oh, sorry, by the way, I have the sources on all my slides. I know it's kind of hard to read. I didn't want to take the attention out of the message, but I have a document with all the sources, so I'm happy to share it with anyone that asks me. So when you have teams that are very similar, that people think very similarly, you have issues such as voice recognition system not being able to properly recognize women's voices, or even worse, face recognition systems not being able to properly recognize black people's faces, which in the world that we live today can be a very, very dangerous thing. Also, for a more capitalistic view, more diverse companies also make more money. This is a report from last year in the United States that shows that the companies at the top of the diversity rankings made around 20% more profit than the companies at the bottom of the diversity rankings. So if you want to get more money, you need more diverse teams. But the core issue why we should strive for more diversity in science is simply because we are a diverse society. Our society is made of men, of women, of people of all colors, religions, genders, and as such they all belong in science and in astronomy. Now, what's the problem? Why are women so underrepresented in astronomy? This is an extremely difficult question to answer because the problems that women face in astronomy are only a subset of the many problems that women face in society, and they're all deeply interconnected. It's very difficult to just isolate one of these problems, solve it, and then move on to the next. So it is a very, very complex issue that's rooted in the way that our society is built. So it's very difficult to solve. But the problem of underrepresentation actually starts very early for girls. So it's been shown that girls and boys, up until a certain age, around 5 or 6 years old, have the same interest in STEM, and I'm going to introduce this term right now. When I talk about STEM, I mean careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So until they are around 7 years old, boys and girls show the same interest in science. But when girls start getting older, when they move into high school, they start losing interest in science. And there are many reasons why this happens, but I wanted to highlight this. This is a report done by Microsoft last year with schoolgirls in the US and in Europe, where they asked girls if they will know how to pursue a career in STEM. And about 25% more girls said that they would know how to pursue such a career when they already knew a woman that was doing STEM. So it's very important to have women role models in science. There are many things being done to keep the interest of girls in scientific fields, but it's also very important for academia to work on keeping the women that are already there. And women are losing, astronomy is losing women at a high rate. And there's a metaphor that is called the leaky pipeline, that it refers as to how in the long years of a scientific career, people start dropping out because of different issues. Now, the leaky pipeline affects both men and women, but women are leaving science at a much higher rate. And that means that there are problems that are specific to women that are driving them out of astronomy. So let's go through some of those problems and see what is being done about it. The first problem is something as common and as natural as becoming a mother. Because this is a paper from early this year that showed that in the United States, 48% of women in full-time science careers left their jobs after having a kid. Now, this is also happening for men. So this is the men that are living a scientific full-time career after having a first child, and this is the case for women. And you can see that while men do leave science because of this, there is a big difference with the case of women. It adds up to around 30% more women leaving scientific jobs after having the first child. So science is failing at keeping mothers in their jobs. And what can be done about this? There was a study last year that analyzed around 180 educational institutions in the UK, and they found something that will probably come as no surprise for any mothers in the audience, but that the institutions that had better maternity care were better at keeping the women at the jobs, obviously. And it was not just the amount of maternity leave, but also the available childcare in the institution. So a combination of good maternity leave and of childcare for the women at their jobs is much better at keeping the woman there. And also, unsurprisingly, the institutions that had more women to begin with were better at eventually implementing better maternity and child policies. So this is again a case when having more women actually makes the environment better for the women to come in the future. The next problem that I want to show you is something that you have definitely heard about in the last few years, and you might think that it's limited to Hollywood or to movie stars, but it's not. Sexual harassment is everywhere, and astronomy is not exception. We have had a couple of high-profile cases in the last years, but the thing about harassment, about sexual harassment and gender harassment, is that it doesn't need to be just one terrible thing that happens to you and drives you out of astronomy. It can be years and years of cumulative damage, things like jokes or comments from your colleagues that eventually drive women out of astronomy. Oops, sorry. And there was a survey done in 2017 of people in astronomy, and they asked them if they have ever felt unsafe in their jobs for different reasons: their gender, their religion, their race. And this was a case for gender. So this is the people that said that they have felt unsafe at their astronomy job, okay? This is not a Hollywood job, this is astronomy. People that have felt unsafe because of their gender. And you can see that there are a couple of white men that have felt unsafe. But the case for women is much, much worse, and especially for women of color. This is another issue where gender and race cannot be separated. It's a very complex issue. So what can we do about this? Harassment and the presence of harassment everywhere is an extremely difficult problem to solve. But more and more astronomical institutions are showing that this behavior will be completely unacceptable. So many institutions and conferences are enforcing codes of conduct and saying that they will not allow any kind of harassment in these places. But not just that, there have been some more personal approaches. For example, the Astronomy Allies group, which is a group of many astronomers from all over the world. In any conference that you go to in astronomy, it's likely that one of them will be there. And they are this kind of safe people that you can talk to and that you can come to if you feel unsafe at a conference, if something happens to you. They offer to walk you to your hotel or to call someone for help. So there are different approaches. This is kind of a personal approach of astronomers looking out for each other and protecting the possible victims of these issues. But it's also institutional policies to also take care of this. Now, if you are a woman in astronomy and you're not a mother, you have been lucky enough to never face harassment in your career, you can say, okay, but I'm lucky, everything is going fine, right? Well, I have bad news for you, because gender bias is still affecting your career. The idea that men are better for scientific jobs than women is still pervasive in astronomy. And the problem with biases is they are unconscious. Nobody that has grown in this society today is free of gender biases, whether we like it or not. It's how we are conditioned, it's how we grow up in this society. So in 2017, there was a study. So when you are a scientist and you have a big discovery, what you do is you write a paper, you submit the paper to a scientific journal, and there a committee will review it and decide if it's ready for publication. So what the study did was that they submitted identical work, but one time with a man's name and one time with a woman's name. And they found that these refereeing committees, men and women gave lower scores when they thought that the work was done by a woman. And not just that, because when you're a scientist, sadly today, the way that a scientist's success is measured is the amount of citations that you have. So when you get your paper published, you want other scientists to read it and to cite it. And it's another issue that we could spend another time talking about, but the more citations that you have, the more likely that you are to get a better job. So this is actually very important. And women are also getting around 10% less citations than men. And here I want to bring your attention to the fact that male and female referees gave less scores to women. Because being a woman does not free you from having gender biases, okay? We're all biased, and the only way to fight about it is to be aware and be conscious of that. So the only way that you can actually stop biases from affecting women's careers is to be aware of them and to actively work against them. So Harvard University, I don't know why my slides are looking weird. They were pretty on my computer, I'm sorry. So Harvard University has developed a series of tests where you can test your biases regarding gender, race, nationality, many things. And I have a bit of a story for you, because I had heard about these tests before, but I had never taken them. And then a couple of weeks ago, when I was preparing this talk, I came across it again. I said, okay, I will take the test. I mean, I'm the kind of person who thinks I can come here tonight and stand on a stage and tell you about all these things. And I did the test, and my result was that I was moderately biased toward thinking that men were better for science. And that was a bit shocking, but like I said, this is just the society we grow up in, and biases are deeply, deeply, deeply ingrained in our brains since the time we are born. So the only way to stop them is to be conscious that you have them and to actively work against them. This is a nice picture of the Hubble Space Telescope, so you can just take a breath and relax a bit. But actually, the Hubble Space Telescope has been doing experiments to see how we can stop gender biases from affecting the careers of women. So just as when you submit a paper, if you're an astronomer and you want to use a telescope, you have to write a proposal, say why you want to use this telescope. Then again, a committee will review that proposal, and will decide if you get to use the telescope or not. And the Hubble Space Telescope had a very bad track of many years accepting a lot of more proposals written by men than by women. So last year, they decided to take a few of the proposals they received and made the refereeing process completely blind. So the committee that was reviewing the proposals had no idea who had written them, had no idea if they were a man or a woman. And guess what happened? The numbers became much more similar between men and women getting the proposals, and not just that, but women actually got more proposals accepted. We have to give men an opportunity too, okay? But the thing that I want to highlight is that biases, you have to fight them actively, and that's also what we've been trying to do here on Astronomy on Tap. So these are the dates of all our previous events, and this is the ratio of women speakers that we've had. So our first event we had 0 because it was 2 men, but after that we have tried to keep it around 50%, and I think that in the last 2 years we have stick to a 50% ratio, so that's very good. But that's the thing, you have to actively fight these biases. And now to finish on a bit of a more positive note, all these problems run very deep in society. They are very hard to solve. They are very slow to solve, but all the things that we are doing are actually working. So this is a report on the Draw a Scientist test, where basically very little school kids are asked to draw a scientist, just that. So in the 1983 report, which used data from the 60s and the 70s, less than 1% of the kids drew a woman scientist in this test. And only 1% of the girls drew a woman scientist. Now, if you go to the 2016 report, 34% of the kids drew a woman scientist and 50% of the girls drew a woman scientist. So these things are working. The image of women as a scientist is changing, and it's working to tell the kids that everybody can be a scientist. So now, what can we do? What can you do as a parent, as a teacher, as a professor, as a colleague? What can we all do to make astronomy a better environment and science a better environment for everyone? First of all, be aware of your biases. Everybody here is biased. Don't discuss it with me. You're all biased. Become aware of it and work actively against it. Expose children to women role models. Talk to them about Marie Curie, about Jocelyn Bell, about Vera Rubin. There are hundreds of amazing women scientists and women all in the history of the world that the kids should learn regardless of their gender. Encourage growth and stop stereotypes. It's been proven that one of the reasons why girls lose interest in science at an early age is because girls are conditioned to think when they face a difficult math problem, girls think, I'm stupid, I can do this, I'm bad at math. But boys are conditioned to think, this is a very hard problem, I will study harder, I will work harder, and I will solve it. That is the growth mindset. And that is the mindset that everybody should have, boys and girls in the same way. Let's stop the stereotype that girls are bad at science and math, because it's simply not true. And finally, sometimes it's said that it's counterproductive to talk about these problems, especially in outreach events like this one, because we will actually make people scared, and girls won't want to go into science because they're telling us about all these terrible things that happen. But that's not what I want you to go home with today. The message that I want you to take home today is that everywhere in the world, every single day, there are women and men fighting to make astronomy and science more welcoming from everyone. And we need everyone, we need all of you to make better science. Thank you.